please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
This week on Storyboard, at the recently held AdTech, we caught up with Matt Brocklehurst, Progrmmatic and Platforms Marketing Lead Asia Pacific at Google, who gave us insights on the future of their product, Progrmmatic Guaranteed, to help brands get better control and efficiencies on their campaign. And we also caught up with David Shing, Global Digital Prophet at Oath, and spoke to him about why digital really requires a profit. Hello and welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat. At the recently held AdTech in New Delhi, we caught up with Matt Brocklehurst, Progrmmatic and Platforms Marketing Lead Asia Pacific at Google, who spoke to us about the programmatic landscape in India and how many brands across the country are already benefiting from their product, Progrmmatic Guaranteed. He also spoke to us about the efforts Google is putting in to deal with issues such as ad fraud. Let's take a look at this chat. Matt, welcome to Storyboard. You know, Google has a very interesting product, Progrmmatic Guaranteed. Tell us, what is this Progrmmatic Guaranteed all about, and how has it helped advertisers so far since its launch in 2016?
Sure. If I take a step back and just explain programmatic, because I think sometimes people have heard of programmatic, but they get a bit confused because there's a jungle of jargon and acronyms, but actually it's quite a simple concept. So all programmatic is really using technology to automatically serve adverts to hit the right person at the right time with the right message, and to do that efficiently and at scale. So that's the concept of programmatic, and it's a very hot subject. So we work with Boston Consulting Group, and they did a market survey in terms of Asia Pac, Asia Pacific, and what that market opportunity is. So if we're looking at video and display media, across Asia Pac, there's a 14.5 billion industry, and of that, 19% of that is programmatic. Fast forward to 2020, it's a 19 billion industry, and the percentage of that of programmatic is 34%. So it's growing very quickly. And one of the big reasons that it's growing, one of the reasons that the Boston Consulting Group highlighted, is this concept called Progrmmatic Guaranteed. And so Progrmmatic Guaranteed is very interesting, actually, because it addresses a couple of misconceptions about programmatic. So programmatic has always been seen as a very good way for advertisers to drive results. So whether that's leads or sales. So sort of direct response, because it focuses on remnant inventory, that long tail of video and display media. What Progrmmatic Guarantee does is allow publishers to put premium inventory into the programmatic environment. So what I mean by premium inventory, that's things, it's the sort of crown jewels for publishers. So it's things like a homepage masthead. It could be a premium video, or it could be an audience of, say, fitness enthusiasts. So traditionally, these sorts of premium inventory, publishers have traded direct with a traditional reservation or direct reservation. The reason for that is they can charge a fixed price and get a fixed volume. What Progrmmatic Guarantee does is allow publishers to still have that fixed price and that fixed volume, but do it within an automated environment, within a programmatic environment. So what we're seeing is a shift from a manual process to an automated process. And that's very interesting for publishers because they get a lot of benefits of efficiency, but it's also good for advertisers because it's very attractive to brand advertisers, because brand advertisers like that premium environment. It's good for brand advertising. So Progrmmatic Guaranteed has opened up a whole new way of doing business for brand advertisers and publishers.
Can you just share a few examples of how it has helped advertisers so far?
One of the very interesting things about India is that if you look at that video and display market, 41% of that is traded programmatically within India. I mean, you've seen a lot of big brands getting involved with programmatic. So whether that's on the auto side, people like Ford, Maruti, Nissan. On the finance, we have Max Life, CPG, Unilever, Nestle, L'Oreal. They're all enjoying the benefits of programmatic. And then on the publisher side, You have people like Times, Internet Times of India, and TrueCaller. And TrueCaller is a very interesting example from a publisher perspective because they're quite indicative of one of the interesting trends we're seeing within India around programmatic guaranteed, because they're able to leapfrog into some of the advances where companies in other markets in EMEA or in America, they've not been able to leapfrog to get the same advantages as someone like TrueCaller in India has. So TrueCaller is an interesting company. So it's a Swedish company, but one of their biggest markets is in India. I'm sure you're aware of TrueCaller. Yes. And they trade almost 100% of their inventory programmatically now. And what's exceptional is 20% of that is programmatic guaranteed, their premium inventory. And they haven't had to cope with legacy systems or legacy approaches. They've leapfrogged into the advantages of programmatic guaranteed. So I think TrueCaller is a great example to look at in terms of how India is leading the way.
Yep. So sticking to this example, can you share like a marketing problem that they came up with, and how did programmatic guaranteed help them solve that problem?
So I think it's interesting to look at the Boston Consulting Group study, and they looked at the change in processes for advertisers, agencies and publishers to move from a direct reservation approach to a programmatic guaranteed approach. And they used a series of workshops. So they looked at 43 businesses globally, and 23 of those are in APAC, including a significant amount of Indian publishers and agencies. And what they did is have workshops which mapped out every single step of the process. And they detected that within traditional reservations, there's sort of 3 key areas of wasted time. And so things like manual processes. So you'd spend the agency would spend a lot of time manually doing things like literally taking screenshots to share with the publisher and vice versa to show that the campaign was running, or chasing bills, which is particularly challenging environment. So the publisher, you get up to sort of 3 people just responsible for chasing bills, a very manual process. Similarly, a lot of, because of the amount of steps involved in a traditional reservation, something like 40 steps to do a campaign, there's more room for human error. So you'd get mistakes where the wrong creative was sent over, so you're chasing creative, which is just wasting time. And then thirdly, have this sort of over-processing. So there's not a single source of truth, because the publisher and the agency have different sources for how the campaign went, have to reconcile how many impressions they saw, etc. So a lot of time is wasted trying to reconcile the different reports that you're getting. With programmatic guaranteed, it irons out all of those problems. You get an automated system, so you're going from a manual process to an automated process. So you haven't got the same problems of chasing bills. You haven't got the same problems of chasing creative, and you've got one single report, one single source of truth.
So you mentioned several advertisers, especially Indian advertisers, using programmatic in India. What is the landscape of programmatic in India currently, and is there a scope for further growth?
So I think India is very exciting. So as I said, if you're looking at the penetration of programmatic in India across video and display, it's already at 41%. So 41% is significantly higher than we're seeing in other APAC markets. I think what's so exciting about India is just the explosion of online. So I think you're looking at about 400 million people online at the moment, and that's predicted to rise to 650 million by 2020. 225 million monthly mobile users in India. I mean, these figures are massive. These are an incredible opportunity. And if you think about one of the real sweet spots of programmatic is to get that right message to the right person at the right time, but to do so efficiently at scale. And if India is about nothing else, it's about scale. So I think that's why there's a real potential for programmatic within India. And that's why we're seeing a lot of take-up by Indian advertisers and publishers of something like programmatic guaranteed.
Okay. We are at AdTech, and here you are unveiling a report about programmatic in the country. Can you share like a few prominent highlights of this report with us?
Yeah, so what Boston Consulting Group did is they sat down with Indian advertisers, Indian agencies, Indian publishers, and mapped out the time saving that you gain from moving from a direct reservation process to a programmatic guaranteed process. And what they found is for publishers, there's a 57% saving in time. So it's 57% quicker for publishers to do the same campaign for an advertiser. And for agencies, it's 29% quicker. So that's a massive saving in time. And from that time saving, they can do more value-added activities. So having to spend less time doing the manual chasing of bills, the manual creation of reports, the manual chasing of creative, etc. They can do things like post-campaign analysis, audience analysis, deeper analysis of campaign results and optimization, etc. So both sides of the party are able to get better results quicker.
Matt, dependence on technology has also brought in its own set of challenges, like for example, ad fraud. So how is Google dealing with something like that?
Ad fraud we take very seriously, and I think we're in a privileged position as Google because we obviously have views across the ecosystem. We have a dedicated team who are focused on proactively addressing ad fraud, and we're seeing some success, but obviously this is an ongoing challenge and something that we, as I say, take very seriously.
Finally, with a product like Programmatic Guaranteed, what kind of job profile in the media and advertising industry will become obsolete in the coming days? Is it the planner?
So we're not seeing that at all. The roles change, and if you look at other industries, this is what's happened. The roles change, but a role doesn't become obsolete. It becomes more challenging and more rewarding.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Thanks for speaking to us. When I recently met David Shing, aka Shingy, who's the global digital prophet at Oath, my first question to him, in fact, was what does he really do as a prophet? In this interesting chat with Shingy that happened on the sidelines of the recently held AdTech in Delhi, he also spoke to us about why digital really requires a prophet and what are those jargons pertaining to this medium that he really hates. Let's take a look at this conversation. David Shing, or Shingy, welcome to Storyboard.
Thanks for having me.
You call yourself digital prophet.
Right.
What is with the designation? What is with the title?
Okay, so the title really comes from wanting to be able to contextualize trends and ideas for brands, agencies, and the market. Somebody wanted to call me an evangelist. I said there's too many of those. I'll call myself a prophet.
Okay, tell us, why does digital industry need a prophet?
And that's a great question. It needs contextualization. It needs some type of alignment with behaviors and platforms and how people engage, and it needs to be clear and inspiring because it's so confusing. So really what I do is look to trends and try to help people navigate the waters. That's why digital needs it. It's unlike changing the channel on a television show.
So what exactly is your job as a digital prophet?
It's really to inspire people to do better, to engage with people in ways that are unique to their brand, and also understanding what people are doing in terms of the behaviors. Like, for example, here in India, you guys under-index in terms of mobile penetration. You're like 57% of the population. 1.3 billion people, that's a big market. Most countries I go to, they oversaturated in mobile connections, but you guys are currently still an undercated market, which is a unique opportunity. I also found that you have 2 SIM cards in your phones, or you carry 2 phones, one for data, one for voice. But there was something like a 9 times growth in video consumption. So as your data rate came down, the engagement in video went up. So people are freaky cool for that device. So what could happen? What could you do that make it even more engaging for brands, particularly for the mobile device? Because it seems like desktop isn't a big issue for you.
But video is not just an India trend. It's overall that the video is growing globally as well. So what can brands really do?
Well, there's a couple of things. They shouldn't do 30-second TV commercials and then throw them across the digital channels and expect them to perform equally as well. I think that's rubbish. They really need to contextualize the type of video engagement on the platforms where their brands engage most, in the format and the currency of the culture that people want to engage in. And there's a secret ingredient that people have to build into their video over and above anything that's passive, like television, and that's surprise. Because the one thing that brands really want their content to do in digital is become contagious. The only way that can happen is if it's shared. The only way that can happen is if they build hooks into it that makes it highly shareable. So I call it a head tilt. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, but that's super cool. I want to be able to share that with as many people as I possibly can, as fast as I can. Okay,
I'm going to quote something from your own blog. You said attention will become the new currency in one of your blogs. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, so, you're looking at your phone right now. How many times do you think you unlock your phone per day?
I can't put a number to that.
Yeah, on the average Apple phone, people unlock their phone 80 times a day. That probably means you interact with it a couple of hundred times a day.
Yes.
So no matter what comes at us, so in the digital industry, we want to say, because we can measure everything, let's measure everything. Well, I don't think that's true, right? Click-through rate, cost per acquisition, which means attribution, all of those things are very confusing. At the end of the day, you have 24 hours in the day. How you assign your attention to brands that do a great job of captivating you, particularly the device in your hand, that is attention. And how you measure that is appropriated to, if you meet me where I need to be met and you give me something that meets my need, that is radically different than any type of marketing we've done in the past, and that's a massive opportunity, I think, particularly around mobile.
Okay, you know, we hear a lot of jargons when it comes to digital. There are new jargons thrown in at us every year. And, you know, over the past few years, I have seen since digital has grown, every year is the jargon of the year. And, you know, all the stories, all the media conferences around the globe are around that particular jargon. What, according to you, is the most overused jargon of late, and why it shouldn't be given as much attention as it currently deserves?
All right, so I'll give you three, and I'm the buzzword king. So let me contextualize it. Millennials should never be used again. They're humans. Imagine that. And they just happen to be young humans that have particular behaviors. So that's one thing. Let's not call them that. And I hate being called that anyway, so stop calling them that. The second thing is disruption. I hear it everywhere I go. Disrupt, 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 disrupt. The point is really simple, which is if you are thinking, if you're number one in your category, you don't think you can be disrupted, too late, because you're being disrupted. So disruption happens not using technology, but you need to disrupt your business model. And technology may be a helper to do that. So transformation of the business needs to happen. And I would say that the last one that we kind of need to stop using is innovation. Innovation is change. Change is iterative. With all of the confusion that can happen across these digital platforms, we need to invent. Why? Because there are new ways to engage people in ways that they never expected in the past. So that's where I think invention over innovation, and don't use them in the same sentence because they're very, very, very different. One is about change, the other one is about create, and invention is about creation.
What about storytelling? You know, because we have been hearing stories since time immemorial, since probably when we were children, or, you know, when our grandmothers or grandfathers used to tell us stories.
I mean, you're right, storytelling is the most overused word, but it's also the most abused word. For me, it's still very important, but don't use the word storytelling. Remove the telling. It's less about the telling, it's more about the story. And that's the beautiful thing about the digital platforms, is you can tell beautiful, emotional, long, dedicated stories that tap people's hearts, as opposed to 30-second TV spots, which I think is more about trying to tell a story as quickly as possible. So again, it's less about the telling, more about the story.
Okay, so where does the future lie? Is it mobile? Is it wearables? What is it?
I think it's a combination of all of those things. At the end of the day, mobile is a thing that's already here, and wearables is something that is coming. So if you think about it, for me, the desktops replace the television, the tablets replace the laptop, the phones replace the tablet, the wearable hopefully will replace the phone, which means you're going to have to think about it radically different. We went from cinema screen to TV to mobile phone. All of the way that you engage with people has been consistently the same. But when you go to something that's square, rectangular, circular, triangular, the way you target people with the content you target them, it has to be radically different. That means this industry is going to be ripe for disruption. There's that buzzword again.
So what trend do you spot in the coming days?
Look, I'll take a different position on that and just say that I think that people are going to think about their relationships in digital with brands and the platforms they engage with differently, because we've gone from a trusted environment where I understand and curated the experience that I had to a place that is overwhelming, which means it then becomes underwhelming because I can't find what I'm looking for because we're anxious about the sort of information we're receiving. So I think there's going to be kind of a backlash against the way that we think about the popular platforms today, and we're going to audit that and maybe shrink our platforms slightly and the way that we engage with people. So less is going to be more.
So how do we do that though?
Do a stock take of all the platforms you're on and understand, are those platforms really the best place for your brand to be? Because as a person, are you really on those platforms and are you engaging those ways? And so I think that's kind of where we need to understand. It's not about popularity. I think it's about depth of engagement.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for speaking to us.
Thanks for having me.
With that, it's a wrap on Storyboard this week. You can catch all of our content on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for watching and we'll be back same time next week. See you soon.